Good afternoon. Happy Monday, and thank you for joining me as we talk about COVID-19 pandemic, specifically as it involves Erie County. Today, we have no new positive cases of COVID-19 in Erie County to report, and that is since Saturday. So that holds us as a total of 56 confirmed positives. There are 1,335 negatives. The state is reporting Erie County with 60 cases, and looking into that, that includes those 4 probable cases. So what this means is there are an extra 4 individuals who have been symptomatic and have been in contact, direct contact with a known positive, but those individuals have not been tested. So they are presumed to be positive. The Erie County Department of Health continues the contact tracing and continues to communicate with the state about these and all other cases. We still sit at 29 individuals who have recovered to date. So that means that we have 27 confirmed active cases as of today. Moving forward, we will be providing information regarding race, gender, and age every Wednesday. So we will be updating those numbers on a weekly basis. We know COVID-19 is here in Erie County, and I'll just remind everyone that the best practice is to act as if everyone you meet has COVID-19. Questions have been asked about the positive case at Walmart here in Erie County. We've been in contact with the Walmart Corporation, and we are confident in their cooperation with us as we investigate this case. The individual who was identified positive did not have much direct contact with customers due to the nature of that person's position at Walmart. We do not have a confirmed number of individuals who were sent home from the Walmart store, but if you have not been contacted, then you are not considered high risk of contracting COVID-19 from that individual. We've also learned that Rite Aid at 5430 Peach Street has opened or will be opening up a testing site in its parking lot. Testing will be conducted from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and customers must remain in their vehicles and must administer the swab test themselves. The health department does have some concerns about the following guidelines from COVID-19 testing, as the swabbing will be done by the person tested. And will that swabbing be adequate and far enough up into the nasal passage to get a good sample? So it's important for everyone to realize that if they go for testing, then you should quarantine yourself until your tests are back. The state numbers are now at 33,232 positives, 1,204 deaths. That is 948 new cases and 92 new deaths recorded in the past 24 hours. Crawford County sits at 16, McKean County at 4, and Warren County at 1. Chautauqua County has 27 cases and 3 deaths, and Ashtabula County has 66 cases and 5 deaths. So let's all continue to do our part to slow the spread of COVID-19 here in Erie County, just as you've been doing for the past weeks. The governor today did announce that the stay-at-home order for the Commonwealth is to be extended until May 8th, an additional week. And naturally, we here in Erie County are following the governor's order. I know this is not easy, and it's not what people want to hear. But continue to look at our numbers and look at how well we are doing in Erie, because people have been staying home. People are socially distancing, and it's working to truly slow down, to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 here in Erie County. Every single one of us wants to get back to normal, but we really do need to follow the guidance and the guidelines for the information that's available to us today, so that when the appropriate time comes, we will be able to get back to work and life as we knew it. So please stay home and continue to physically distance yourself from anyone who does not live in your household. Continue to wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds, sanitize and disinfect your surfaces, and continue to wear a mask. Your mask protects me, and my mask protects you. You'll find a lot more information about masks under resources of the COVID-19 page at eriecountypa.gov. Again, if we don't take these precautions, we will undo the work that has been done so far. And what we don't want to do is open back up and then have to shut back down. With the help of our enforcement team and the guidelines set forth by the state for life-sustaining businesses who are permitted to be open, we believe the new order for wearing masks has a twofold effect. First, it will help us to slow down and stop the spread of COVID-19 here in Erie County. And second, it's going to help all of us to develop standards so that we can get back to work. I was very, very pleased when I went to the grocery store last evening, and everyone I saw, the workers and everyone in the store that was there shopping, had a mask on. So thank you to everyone who is doing really well under this new order that requires all of us to wear masks when we're out and about. The state has also provided several resources to help our essential businesses to stay in compliance. And they have workforce safety facts for in-person operation and to follow the order of Secretary Rachel Levine. Questions such as, are there recommendations on where employees can purchase masks for employees? That's answered on some fact sheets at health.pa.gov. Employers do not need to purchase masks from any specific vendor, but are required to provide masks to their employees to wear during business hours. Homemade masks and masks that are owned by the employees are allowed also. The Department of Health has published 2 guidances on how to make cloth masks also. Additionally, the Department of Community and Economic Development has created a business-to-business directory, which identifies potential vendors of masks and other personal protection equipment. Another question often asked is, what if someone does not come in with a mask and the business cannot offer an alternative means of serving that customer? Businesses should consider providing masks to their customers or offering them resources with information on how to make their own mask. Consider sharing mask making on your social media, distributing how-to flyers at your place of business, or sharing locations of where people can go and purchase masks. Customers can also be reminded that they can wear a scarf or a bandana as a mask. Anything that provides a barrier between your nose and your mouth and anyone else you come in contact with. However, there are individuals who cannot wear a mask due to a medical condition, and this also includes children under the age of 2. And they may enter the premises and are not required to provide documentation of such a medical condition. Another question is how businesses can avoid confrontation with customers who do not wear a mask. This guidance and much more is available on the fact sheets, which can be found under resources on the COVID-19 page of eriecountypa.gov. And once again, if you need information or assistance from our enforcement team or anything else from the health department, go to ecdhinfo@eriecountypa.gov or call us at 814-451-6700, and you can also find many, many resources on our webpage at eriecountypa.gov. So thank you, and I would like to now open it up to our media for questions, and we will start with Jet TV today.
Hi, Kathy. It's Samir. So I guess the elephant in the room, this protest, we know they've been going on across this Commonwealth. I know Pittsburgh had one today, as well as Harrisburg, and we have one scheduled here in Erie County, I believe, started 10 minutes ago at 3. So I guess thoughts, reaction to that.
So, one of our constitutional rights is the right to assemble, and we certainly all really value that right as well as all of our rights. And so people have the right to come together, to assemble, to express their concern, to express their differences. With everything that's going on around COVID-19, first of all, I understand people's frustrations. As I mentioned last week, I can be just as frustrated and tired of all of this as everyone else. But what I do hope that's happening is that everyone is using best practices, that people are staying at least 6 feet physically away from each other person there, that every person there has a mask on because, of course, they are out and amongst many other people, and that hopefully there is a lot of hand sanitizer available for people, and that people don't touch their face or their eyes until they've gotten to some place where they can wash their hands very well for 20 seconds. So as long as they are doing all of those kind of things, then, again, we want people to be able to continue to have their constitutional rights and to exercise those.
Right, and then just to follow up to that, so we know the enforcement team over the weekend, they went to the farm auction, I believe in Wattsburg, and you guys, or the health department, discussed procedures to keep everyone safe, et cetera. Did that take place with this rally, and then will the enforcement team be out there?
So I am actually not aware that the rally individuals contacted the health department. And so therefore, when the auction was great, they contacted us, they asked us to help them out with their plan of how to run an auction in a very careful and safe way, and we worked directly with them. And we're willing to work with any groups who want to do things in a very safe way during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I would encourage anyone who wants to gather like that to contact us. If they have the right to do this, they should do it in a safe manner. I don't believe that group did, but I've not been informed that they have, I guess is the best thing I can say. Erie Times News?
Yes, Kathy, it's David. With the governor's extension of the stay-at-home order till May 8th, do you foresee any instances where there's going to be a loosening before then, even if it's something such as hospitals doing elective surgeries, or even any steps toward opening up more than we have right now?
Well, there may be, and I think it's going to depend on what the state decides is safe. I think we already know that we've loosened up a bit on liquor sales, and that you're going to be able to get curbside service now. So some of those things are going to be loosening up. We already do know that construction in certain manners can start come May 8th, but there has been no indication that other businesses, car dealers can start to do online orders. So there's no indication that other businesses are going to open up, whether it be on May 8th or any other day yet. But I do continue to hope for certain waivers on certain businesses that I think would be helpful to us in our community and to all of our communities to be open and that can do it safely. I talked to some business owners over the weekend. They're already planning for when they will be able to reopen by putting in safeguards and coming up with a really good plan for themselves. And I think the more businesses can do that, the more we can make the argument that certain businesses would not pose any greater health risk to our community. And that's really what we're looking for.
What certain businesses do you hope that there might be waivers before May 8th?
Well, one of the ones that we've been looking for is we've had a couple businesses who do sewing, and they have not been able to get a waiver up to this point, and we were trying to get a waiver for them because they could sew masks for us, for example, and everybody's looking for masks right now. And we have some of the bigger chains who are allowed to be open who sell material and things, but not our smaller businesses. And so that's some of the things that concern me, and I'd like to see some businesses like that open up. Talk Erie.
Yes, good afternoon, Kathy. It's Joel Natale. The Pennsylvania Health Department is now issuing data at the zip code level for positive cases of COVID-19. And it turns out in Erie County that 16506 has the greatest number of cases with 8, but many zip codes have their positive cases redacted. What does it mean to be redacted, and why would that be the case?
So, Joel, to tell you the truth, until we saw your Twitter, we didn't realize that the state was doing this. And so we have to dig into this and find out, exactly what information they're putting out and And, this has come out just this afternoon. And, so we will be having more conversations around this. And my staff will be talking to Harrisburg to try to find out, what the State Department is doing. Unfortunately, and this goes back to the fact that there are only 6 county health departments and 4 municipals, the state's looking at all 67 counties, and because they are the county health department for 57 of them at least, sometimes information comes out and we're not even made aware of it. So it's unfortunate that we weren't made aware of this prior to it coming out and being public, but we're digging into that. So thank you for being the one to let us know. And we will look into this, and I'll have more information on this tomorrow for you.
Appreciate it.
Jet TV.
Yep. Hi.
Kathy, it's Ethan Kibbe from Erie News Now. Could I get a question in, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Erie News Now. You're right. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, you're absolutely fine. We're looking at the protest down at Perry Square right now, and it seems like we've got maybe 75 to 100 people there. Does that concern you as we go about trying to flatten the curve and look toward reopening, that we've got people congregating in that sort of number right now? Are you worried that this could set us back?
Well, my questions are they wearing masks, and are they 6 feet apart from each other? And
It's hard to be that far apart in that size of an area, so I would say that, social distancing ish.
well, those are the 2 things I would be most concerned about. Are they all wearing a mask? I guess that is a question I would start with there. And if they're all wearing a mask and they're mostly 6 feet apart, maybe there's people who are related and living in the same home. We don't really know that always. If I'm standing there with my husband, he and I can stand right next to each other, but my neighbor or my friend, I would need to be 6 feet away from. So that's the kind of thing we would need to tell. But obviously, anytime a large group of people get together, we saw the farm auction this weekend was the largest gathering I've seen in our community in quite a while. This would be probably one of the next ones. Anytime that this happens, there is the chance that COVID could start to spread through this group, and we won't know that probably for a number of days, whether these events resulted in some kind of uptick in our number. But I do hope that people have heard the guidance and are adhering to that. Hopefully they understand the seriousness of COVID-19 and the impact it could have on our community if it really did take hold in Erie County, which so far it hasn't. 60 cases across our entire county over all these weeks. It hasn't taken hold, and that's because of the hard work that's been done. We certainly wouldn't want to see that unraveled and to take a turn for the worse quickly because people didn't follow the directions that we all know work. And that's really what this is about. We know what works. We're not trying to take away people's rights. We're not trying to make people do things that aren't needed. We're just talking about the stuff that's needed to control the spread.
And how tough was that as you started hearing plans of the protest to not step on people's rights, but at the same time not allow something that could set us back? How tough is that balancing act, and how do you kind of go through that when you start hearing about it up until it happens? How do you balance that?
Well, again, all of these are very tough things, again, because even when it comes to the compliance piece, and we've been doing this with the businesses since the beginning of the governor's order, we never wanted to do it as a punitive action. We always wanted to do it as their partner and working with the business and help them to do better. Because in the end, I think we all want to save lives. I think we all want people in our community to be healthy. So, we're trying to work along with each organization. And again, I don't believe this organization contacted the health department, but if they had, we would have been glad to work with them, and we'd be glad to work with anybody who wants to do something like this and has the right to do it. So, it is a balance, and we have to all make sure that we're thinking about that. And of course, the first thing too is to be peaceful. And we hope that anyone who has any kind of demonstration remains peaceful, expresses whatever it is that their beliefs are, whatever it is that their message is, but that they do it in a very peaceful and respectful way also.
Gotcha. Our crews down there just told me, in their words, no real social distancing that they're seeing, and maybe 10 to 20% of people with masks.
That's a big concern. I was really hopeful that we would see almost everyone with a mask. I thought we could start there. And I thought that would be a great example that this group could make for our community as a whole. And this is the problem. Unless we all realize that we have to wear the masks, then we're going to have problems. Again, not wearing that mask, you're not protecting anyone else around you because you might be that person carrying COVID-19. And so if we all expect that we do have COVID-19, we wear a mask because we care about people we're around. And so it's really unfortunate, if it's true, that very few people are wearing masks. And it's, I think, very irresponsible. Jet TV?
Yeah, hi, Kathy. Yeah, I'm looking at video right now from our reporter, Star Bodie, who's down there. And, yeah, it's kind of disheartening seeing people not really following that social distancing or wearing their face mask. So, I mean, realistically, is anything going to come out of this, like their movement right now, their protest?
You know, the officials that are making these calls, the people from the health department, the governor's office, you know, they're listening to the people who are the scientists, the doctors, the people who really understand this virus and what it's doing to people and how devastating it is. And they're going to make decisions according to what they have been either elected or brought into a position to do, and that's to protect people, and that's to keep people healthy, and that's to keep this virus as contained as possible. They will not, I'm sure, be making decisions on what a group of protesters are saying. But again, that is a right in our country, but again, it's very disappointing that a group would not understand that we have a huge need to be wearing masks. This is not just going to be for the next few weeks. We're all going to have to learn to wear masks, I think, for a very long time ahead. And one of the things I've been hoping for is that Erie County could actually show to the rest of the Commonwealth and even to the nation that we can wear masks, we can do things safely, and then we can get on with opening back our economy. So I hope that this doesn't set us back, and I hope we don't see a climb in numbers from people who are attending that event.
All right, and I wanted to switch gears a little bit. As we know, Governor Tom Wolf today announcing the stay-at-home order has been pushed back a little bit to May 8th, but he did mention that he was going to go ahead and open some things such as construction and then online notaries, etc. Has there been any more discussion between the governor's administration and Erie County administration about Erie being part of that first wave whenever we do make it to reopening the economy?
I've had no more specific discussions over the weekend about this, but what I'm hoping to be able to show is, you know, particularly like this farm auction, if we don't see any bump here end of the week, next weekend, from specifically that situation, it could take up to 14 days, but those are the kind of things I think would be a really good story for us to tell and to say, look, we were able to do this. We have the staff at the health department who can help organizations get up and running. You know, we could have plans that we could review with businesses to help them be compliant. So we have a lot of the manpower, I guess is what I could say. And I'm going to continue to speak to the governor and to his staff about that, but I haven't had any recently. Erie Times News?
Yes, Kathy. Have you gotten any reports from health department folks today about compliance, other than the protest, about compliance with the masks and how local businesses are doing? I know you gave your own anecdotal story from last night, but have you had any reports countywide on if businesses are complying?
So I know the phones were ringing off the hook this morning, and all morning actually. I think from both businesses who want to comply and are trying to figure out how they comply, and also from people who might have stepped into a business and felt that the compliance wasn't there. So the enforcement teams have been out today, and they will be out, I'm sure, a lot this week. So I'll have more to report for you, but we only spoke early this morning before things really got ramped up, and then now they're out and working. So I don't have anything more to report to you except that the phones were quite busy this morning.
Okay. And then a slightly different question. You had announced, I believe, on Saturday about the second personal care home having a positive case of COVID-19. Do you know, was that also a transfer like the first case was, or was that a resident who was already there and tested positive for COVID?
No, my understanding it's an employee, and they are listed. They are listed in those numbers from the state. So it could be either a resident or an employee that works at some kind of a personal care or long-term care home. So that is my understanding. So again, the work was being done to see what kind of contact this individual might have had with anyone who lives there or anyone else who works there, as well as anyone else in their circle.
Okay. So out of the 2 cases, one's been a transfer to a personal care home, and the other one's been an employee. We have not seen a case yet in the county of a resident already living in a personal care home and getting COVID.
That is my understanding. But
Okay.
I don't have,
Thank you.
a lot of specific details on that, except just kind of generalist details. Erie News Now?
A question for you regarding these.
Erie News Now? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, a question for you regarding these presumed positives. Why aren't these people tested? And then is contact tracing still done on these presumed positives? Is there county?
So many of these cases were early on cases, and as I was mentioning over the weekend, so if, let's just say, a gentleman is diagnosed with a positive, and then sometime within the 14-day quarantine period of their spouse, that spouse becomes very sick with very much symptoms that appear to be COVID-19. Especially in the beginning, we didn't have tests available as we do today. So they basically just said, we're not going to utilize a test to test this person who almost certainly will be testing positive. Just telling them, you are a probable positive, you need to do the same things that the person who tested positive was doing. And so that's the kind of work that was done early on, and those were probable cases. But many of those people, for the most part, I believe, were already quarantined because of having that connection to the positive. So they had already been through that process and they were already quarantined. So that's the difference, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And one more question here about protesters. We've got it up on our screen here again. At what point would you start to get an idea of whether or not we are seeing a spike because of this? Is there some sort of a timeline you can look at where would it be a week to 10 days? When would you get an idea of whether or not this has caused a spike?
Well, usually once someone has had contact with somebody who's positive, I mean, it can be anywhere from 2-3 days up to 14 days before you would see symptoms. And then, of course, we know there's that 25% of people who still remain asymptomatic. So if there was someone out there today who hopefully doesn't have symptoms, but maybe one of our asymptomatic carriers, it's really kind of a long stretch of almost 2 weeks from now before we would see all of the results of if there was a positive person there today. We don't know that there's anybody positive there today, but as I say, I just assume everyone is. So that way we all are very careful. So I would say we will see the majority of that somewhere within the week of this time period, but it could still have some repercussions going forward. Again, if there is someone down there who's a carrier and who's a positive case. We don't know that to be a fact. Talk Erie?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Another data question. Today, Facebook released data in partnership with Carnegie Mellon University that shows on a county level the percentage of the population that has COVID-19 symptoms, not confirmed cases. And for Erie County, and this is dated on April 12th, they found that the percentage of people with symptoms was 0.54%, which is lower than Allegheny County at 0.68, but higher than Montgomery County with 0.41. Do you care to comment on that? Again, it's a survey with Carnegie Mellon that's saying that we actually have a higher symptom rate than even a place like Montgomery.
So I don't know. I have not seen the survey. I don't know how it was conducted. I would need, obviously, trained staff to look at that and to see if it was done in a way that actually makes it significant or not. So we would have to, if it's just some kind of random survey, again, there's a lot of issues around surveys and how they're done and if they're scientific or not. So I really don't have anything to comment on because I've not seen the survey and I don't know anything about how it was conducted.
Well, just to follow up, taking something like this, coming from Carnegie Mellon, and also this concept of the presumed positives that seem to be creeping up on us. That you've said before that anybody who wants a test can get a test. Is that an accurate statement still, or is there still quite a tight testing criteria?
Anyone who needs a test because they have symptoms. So I couldn't just walk into a place today and say, I would like a test. I don't have any symptoms of COVID-19. I'm feeling very good, very healthy. There would be no reason for me to get a test today. Most likely I would test negative because I don't have any symptoms. I could be one of those asymptomatic, though, as I said. But there's not enough tests for all 275,000 of us plus in Erie County to go and walk in and get a test. There are not. So that kind of testing is not available. And again, is that testing going to really make a difference right now? Because a person could test negative today. Let's just say someone was at a gathering like the one today, and they feel fine, they go in, they get tested, but maybe 5 days from now they have symptoms. So then they're not going to test positive till they actually have enough viral load to test positive. So again, it doesn't really make sense for all of us to go get a test, but no, there's not enough testing for that. There's enough testing today for anyone who has symptoms and their physician decides that it's important for them to go get a test. That's when we say there's enough testing for that. But there is not a way to test our whole community.
Thanks.
Jet TV.
I want to circle back around really fast to the protesters. Now that we are mandating, obviously, that people wear a face mask or something to cover their nose and mouth as they enter essential businesses, what about, is there any movement, I guess, towards finding people who aren't going to follow that directive, whether it be at a gathering like we're seeing in Perry Square or Walmart?
So what we're doing is asking all businesses to comply, and we're saying that we're willing to help them comply and find ways they can comply. And in these first few days, businesses are still, this was a very quick turnaround for them to be able to comply. For one thing, they're supposed to take the temperature of every employee coming in the door, and those infrared thermometers are not that easy to get. We had actually ordered a number of them for the county a few weeks ago because we knew we wanted to start taking temperatures, and this was before this order came out, and they just happened to arrive on Friday. But it took, close to 3 weeks for us to have them in hand. So we're working with businesses on what they can do in the meantime before their thermometers would be able to be obtained. Again, masks and finding masks and helping people make masks, although it seems pretty simple, and I've talked about that. We're working with companies to try to figure that out because they have to provide the masks for their employees. So how do they do that? And so I think that for now, we're trying to just, again, work with our employers to do the best they can. This is not a punitive thing. We're trying to get everyone to do the best they can and to work with us. And then we'll get calls, as we did with the business closure piece, from concerned citizens. They will call 451-6700 and they'll say, I was just in a specific store and either employees didn't have masks on or the people coming in weren't required to wear masks. Then we'll make a phone call to that business to discuss this with them. There may be a very good reason why somebody didn't have a mask on. As I said, maybe they have some kind of medical condition that prevents them from being able to wear a mask. But if they are not in compliance, we'll talk to them about how they can get in compliance, and we'll work with them. Again, we're not trying to be, we're trying to be positive here and look at the positive side, just trying to help businesses. And I think through the whole thing on the business closure, businesses saw us as their partner. And that's really what we want to be here too. Erie Times News, do you have any final questions?
Yes, Kathy. I guess I want you to look into your crystal ball a little bit. Come May 8th, how different do you think things will look in Erie County? I know this is a gradual reopening the governor's talking about, but how different will it look to the typical county citizen, do you think?
I hope it doesn't look much different. I hope that we have some businesses opening up and that people are gradually going back out. But I don't know when we're going to get back to being able to go into a restaurant and sit down and eat. That's going to be a whole nother piece that we're going to have to figure out how we do that and stay socially, physically distant from each other. I think that there are some small businesses that'll be very easy for them to comply with this. You know, some stores only have a few people in there at a time, and they may have signs up. Again, we could have mask, no service kind of signs, and limiting, depending on the square footage of the store, how many people can come in and out. So I think those kind of things will look different, but they'll be open, I hope. But I think there'll be some other larger businesses that are going to have to do a little bit more work before they can actually be up and running again. And my concern gets to be that people will become complacent too quickly and think this is no big deal. And what we don't want to see again is some kind of a spike and then have the state come in and say, we're going to shut all the businesses down again. So it's going to be really important that people know that wearing a mask is going to be a long-term thing. It's not just here for a couple weeks. It's going to be a long-term practice. And that's why getting people to practice that now and doing it now will really help all of us to see it's okay. We can wear a mask and we can still get out and do things. So that's my thinking, and that'll be a slow maybe opening over the month of May, get us into June when we can maybe be out a little bit more. I don't foresee us having big events in Erie County this summer. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I don't know if we'll have a Celebrate Erie. I'm not sure if we will or not. I'm not saying we will. I'm not saying we won't. But if we have big events like that, they're going to probably look much different than what we have seen them look like. And so each organizer of a concert or a fair or a festival would have to figure out how they could do that, because no matter what, come this summer, we still don't have any kind of vaccine available, and there's still no great treatments for COVID-19 that keep people from having the worst of symptoms. So those are the things, unless they change, and if that changes, and our scientists, our researchers can come up with ways that we can keep COVID-19 from progressing through people's bodies the way it does for some, then I don't see that really changing.
But as far as just many of the businesses in town, you think during the month of May, many of these businesses, unless they're dealing with large groups of people, like larger restaurants, things like that, you think they will be able to reopen on some sort of scale?
Well, you asked me for a crystal ball, and I don't have one, so I'm very cautious about saying this. That is my hope, is that we can continue with the numbers the way they are now. And, you know, we did have 7 the other day, but, you know, here we are 2 days with 0. And so when you continue to look at the Northwest, there's actually a great graphic on the state's website underneath where they have all of the counties listed, and then they show the graph of 6 sections of the state. And the Northwest certainly is doing the best in keeping our numbers down, and our hospital capacity is adequate, and all those other things you get really concerned about. But make no mistake, COVID-19 is here. Make no mistake that COVID-19 is still very, very dangerous. And if you haven't read the stories out there, they're fairly frightening when you read about what some people have experienced who've had COVID-19. And so I don't want to get it, and I don't think anyone else wants to get it that hasn't had it, because it can be a really debilitating couple weeks or longer for people. So I don't have a crystal ball. I'm hoping that we can start to open some of our businesses, and that those businesses who have the best plans and have it really worked out where they can bring people in safely, that maybe we can get some of them open and going, and then we can eventually find ways as we learn from each other and learn how we do this, and the businesses that are currently open have good practices, and they're going to help us learn how to do this, then we can start to open more businesses. But I don't have a crystal ball. So again, very cautious about what this looks like, but I'm hoping that May starts us with some sort of reopening. Erie News Now, do you have any final questions?
Yes, one final question for you. We're still looking at the protests here on Erie News Now, and just a question for you. With the ban on large gatherings and such, if you really had wanted to could you have shut this down? And then also just wanted to dot I's and cross T's on that Walmart case. That's the Elm Street Walmart, correct?
That is true about a Walmart. And in terms of the gathering, that would really take law enforcement to decide that gathering is not going to happen, and law enforcement is not under the jurisdiction of the county. We have done the enforcement and using county law enforcement, which is detectives and probation, and they're not really in charge of that type of law enforcement. That would be the city of Erie, the state police, who would be in charge of enforcing on a gathering like that. So, it could have been decided. I think it was maybe just decided to let's see how they gather and let's see what it looks like. But again, it's a tough call on these gatherings. And what I would suggest to people, if you don't feel comfortable, stay away. Because that's what I've done when I've gone to even grocery stores. Just stay away if you don't feel comfortable where you're at. If you don't want to get COVID-19, then stay away from any large gathering, and certainly stay away from any place where people aren't wearing masks.
Thanks.
Talk Erie, do you have any final questions?
One last question. It's being reported that New York State has reopened all of its marinas. Didn't know what the status is of our marinas here in Erie County. Are they able to get their boats in the water? What are the restrictions that you know of?
What I know right now is our marinas are not able to do that. That putting the boat in the water, these bigger boats, requires more people and closer together, and that's some of the concern. I've heard some of the other concern is that many of our marinas, people kind of stay on their boat, and there's a lot of socializing, which is great usually, but of course that's something that's concerning. But that's what I've heard some of the concerns are. I think all these things will continue to be under review by the state, but it is my understanding there was some difference in paperwork and things that were being put out there from the DCED versus Fish and Boat Commission. But it is my understanding right now that the state has decided not to have marinas reopen. And I do know in other states they have decided to begin to do that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens over time. It's still a little early. It's still a little chilly out there on the water for most boaters, but I hope that by the time, the weather gets nicer and boating season is in full force, that people can go out and enjoy themselves on the water and do the things they like to do, but it's all going to depend on what happens here with our numbers on COVID-19.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to thank everybody for joining me again today, and I look forward to being back here with you again tomorrow. And in the meantime, please stay home, please stay safe, and please stay calm.